Hello and welcome to Fire of Learning. Thank you for joining us in this episode as we discuss animal names with hidden meanings, starting with dolphins. Dolphins take their name from the Greek word Delphis, which means womb. This is a reference to the fact that they are, of course, mammals who give birth to live young. In medieval England, before this word entered English, they were sometimes called merswine, sea pigs. The hippopotamus also has a Greek name, from hippopotamos, meaning river horse. You may recognize these Greek words from names like Philip, from Philippos, lover of horses, and Mesopotamia, in between two rivers. Squirrel originally comes from the Greek skiaoura, meaning tail that casts a shadow. Porcupine comes from the Old French porc espin, ultimately coming from the Latin porcus spina, spine pig. The word raccoon comes from the Powhatan arracunum, meaning he scratches with the hands. Can't help but wonder if it was named by someone who learned the hard way. Possums also take their name from a Powhatan word, opossum, meaning white animal. The pronunciation of opossum is not only acceptable, it's actually the original form. It just became common to drop the O over time, leaving us with possum as well. Neither are incorrect. Skunks take their name from a word in an unknown Algonquin language likely similar to the word Siganku, which roughly means urinating fox in the Algonquin language of Abenaki. The circumstances surrounding the naming of the penguin are unclear, but it is likely derived from the Welsh pen gwyn, meaning white head. The origin of the word walrus is also debated, but it probably has a Germanic, probably Old Norse origin, from the combination of hval and ros, meaning whale horse. We see hval again in narwhal, which might come from the Old Norse meaning corpse whale, possibly because their mottled gray skin and their habit of resting on the surface of the sea in the summer reminded sailors of the drowned. This might be a myth though, and it might actually just mean whale with a horn. Koalas take their name from the word gula, from the language of the indigenous Darug people of Australia. It means no water, a reference to the fact that koalas typically derive all the water that they need through eating eucalyptus tree leaves. Lemurs take their name from the Latin lemures, the Roman name for evil spirits. According to Linnaeus himself, who named them, quote, "I call them lemurs because they go around mainly by night in a certain way similar to humans and roam with a slow pace." Capybara comes from the Tupi kaapiwara, meaning grass eater. I can confirm. This is why I do not own a lawnmower. Lizards take their name from the Latin lacertus or lacertus. This word became lagarto in Spanish. When the Spanish came to the Americas, they found giant lizards. When the English asked them what they were, the Spanish answered el lagarto, which became alligator in English. The Spanish also named armadillos, armadillo meaning little armored one. The native Aztecs called them ayotochli, meaning turtle rabbit. Orang-utan means forest person in Malay. Platypus comes from the Greek platupus, meaning flatfoot, referring to their flat-webbed feet. Ferrets take their name from the Latin furitus, which means little thief. If you have ever been around one, you know why. Evidently, they have not changed one little bit since the days of Rome. Our names for some animals are ultimately derived from imitations of the sounds they make. It can actually be difficult to tell that this is the case for some animals, however, as some were named by this method so far back that, after thousands of years of linguistic change, their names, funnily enough, no longer closely resemble the sounds they make. My high school Latin teacher taught me this, actually. I'll never forget him teaching us the word for bull in Latin, one of them anyway. Bos. He said, "Do you know why the Romans called a bull bos? Because bo." Cow, in English, ultimately comes from the same place as bos, believe it or not, the Proto-Indo-European root gu, probably in imitation of their sound. Gu. Another example may be owl, possibly from the Proto-Indo-European uol, meaning hooer. Be sure to enunciate. A final example of this could be geckos, from the sounds they make, although, less likely, it may come from the Akanese ge-go, meaning busy animal. Could it be said, therefore, that the etymological root of this word lies in the language of the gecko tongue? Gecko tongues. Now I'm hungry. Anyway, think about it. These are amusing, but as primitive as it might seem, we actually still do this. Quite a number of birds were named after their calls. Chickadees, whippoorwills, cuckoos. Anyway, rhinoceros is Greek for horned nose. Aardvark comes from the Afrikaans earth pig, referring to its appearance and the fact that it often burrows. The bob in bobcat is not short for Robert cat, it means short hair, referring to its short tail. Dodo, an extinct honorable mention, might come from the Portuguese meaning fool or stupid, referring to the fact that the bird did not attempt to flee from human hunters, a result of the fact that there were no major predators on its native island of Mauritius. Interestingly, as a side note, scientists now seem to favor the idea that the extinction of the bird was more attributable to deforestation and the animals humans introduced to the island, like dogs and macaques, and the massive ecological shift that caused, rather than human overhunting itself. Still, it likely didn't help that the birds were kind of, well, dodos. Flamingos take their name from the Spanish flamenco, which means roughly flaming, a reference to their vibrant pink color. Leopards take their name from the Greek leon, meaning lion, and pardos, meaning panther. The ancients believed leopards to be hybrids of the two. Mosquito is Spanish for little fly. Before this word entered English, the word midge was used. The lady after whom ladybugs, or as they are also known, ladybirds, are named is the Virgin Mary. It is not known exactly why. There are several theories, one of which suggests it derived from the 7 spots on their backs, associated by medieval Christians with the 7 joys and 7 sorrows of Mary. Whatever the reason, the association is present in many European languages. Why are butterflies called butterflies? Nobody knows for sure, but it is suspected that it's either derived from a butter-like coloration on the wings of some species, or, maybe more likely, an old folk belief that the creatures ate butter, which they do not. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? I don't know. But the name origin has nothing to do with chucking wood, whatever that means. It comes from the Cree word otchek, which once referred to martens, but now refers to what are also called groundhogs. Moose likely comes from an Algonquin language, such as the Abenaki word moose, meaning he strips off, probably referring to the animal stripping bark off of trees for food in the winter. The real question is why are moose moose but not meese, like the plural of goose is geese? The answer is that the word goose has an Anglo-Saxon and therefore Germanic origin, and in Germanic languages, like German, sometimes words are made plural by changing the sounds of the vowels within them. Moose was introduced to English 1,000 years later, when adding s's onto nouns to make them plural was the norm. The Algonquin language from which the word came did not have a separate plural for moose, which is probably why English did not give it one either. The word for a giraffe comes. Interestingly, in the Middle Ages, giraffes were referred to as camelopards, from the Greek for camel, leopard. Camel for the neck, leopard for the spots. You can actually see a remnant of this in astronomy with the constellation Camelopardalis. Chameleon comes from the Greek kamai, meaning on the ground, or more properly creeping, and leon, meaning lion. Creeping, likely because of how they move, lion, likely because of the crests found on some species. Blue whales are called blue whales because they are blue and whales. Well, alright, I think I'm out of interesting ones. Let's wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, I invite you to come check out the rest of Fire of Learning, and to subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. To help support the channel, you may make a donation on Patreon, the link to which is in the description. A special thanks to my current patrons listed here. I also run a science channel much like this called Lucinox, so be sure to check that out too. Thank you for watching.